doing the rankings, for the first time, and kind of putting it out there for the first time, actually is a process I think I may do moving forward, and I'm giving y'all.
It just helped you, like in
It did. It really did.
thinking through.
It's kind of in a lot of different ways. It helped me, just like doing drafts helps me. When you're on the clock and you're like, man, I don't really know if I like Garrett Wilson or AJ Brown or Puka Nacua, and then you're on the clock and then you make a selection and you either fall in love with that selection or you realize, that probably wasn't the best decision, or at least you didn't feel it was the best decision.
Yeah.
So these are the rankings. Please come at me. We have a lot of intelligent, savvy, just extremely smart listeners. Just I can tell by like the questions that they ask, by the comments that they leave in the YouTube sections, and those who send kind of questions through the DM. So this stage in fantasy football, this era that we're in, every information that's out there, every very equipped to be able to be a really good fantasy player. So I'm interested to hear any feedback, hear your thoughts. I likely won't change them based on that, but I'm always open to change. So yeah, what do y'all think of the rankings so far?
I mean, Stephon Diggs being a receiver 3 on the Texans is kind of interesting. I mean, most people think that he's going to be the alpha there. He has been an alpha in the future. I mean, like in the past.
Yeah.
And so to be the offense.
Yeah. So I'm gonna step back for a bit. If you guys have listened to previous shows or you listened to 2023, you knew I was a huge Stephon Diggs fan.
Mm-hmm.
If you listened to the 2023 pods, you knew I was a huge Keenan Allen fan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never ever just in love with a player and then that's just like my guy.
Mm-hmm.
It is always on a year-to-year basis with me. Okay, always on a year-to-year basis. So when you look at this list, Diggs, a guy I was high on last year, I've now fallen out of favor with. And it has nothing to do with like being sour on a guy or anything like that. Absolutely nothing to do with that. Same thing with the Keenan Allen. That was a guy I was super, super high on, way overweight on. And this year, given the situation and given the things around him, I'm not as high on him.
Where's Keenan at? You don't like him?
He's not
even on the list.
Yeah, for right now, he's not on the list. And again,
So you like the rookie better than him?
Yeah, we'll talk about kind of what that means. But let's talk about, to get back to your Diggs comment. For me, like this is a tough position to navigate, the wide receiver room with the Houston Texans.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily know that you necessarily need to flag plant. I think it's a good idea to probably have a decent percentage of all of them. But the way that I play fantasy football, the way that I draft, I'm just going to be overweight on guys. And I'm going to be fine like if I miss out on the guy. And to me, I want to be overweight on Nico and Dell. Nico specifically because I feel like he is the true X-alpha wide receiver in that offense. I feel like he can operate, close to the line of scrimmage. He can take a slant to the house. I feel like he was used quite a bit in that intermediate range, and I feel like he can work down the field.
Yeah.
And his body type, I feel like works really well in the red zone. So to me, he just sort of kind of fits the quality, and specifically in this offense. Obviously, young player, sort of kind of up and coming. He's trending upward. I like what I saw, and I feel like, whether it's, 21 personnel, 3 wide receiver sets, I feel like he's never going to leave the field. He's also been there with C.J. Stroud for a year. He's been in this offense for a year, and they paid him as such as well. So Nico is my number 1. Dell is my number 2. I definitely have him a little bit further down the list, and that's just because I do think he's going to play outside. Shout out to Deo, because Deo, I think, was one when we were talking about Dell last year as far as him not being a slot guy, because I think a lot of people looked at his body frame, his body type as like kind of a slot-only player.
Yeah.
And obviously he went to U of A, so Dell got to see him quite a bit. But Dell, too, worked all over the field.
Yeah.
And so I have no issues if somebody thinks that Dell is going to be the guy over Nico. But for me, like I gotta, in my mind, I have to decide who's number 1. And that's the issue with rankings. If you just go based on rankings, I'm not going to get Tank Dell. But I will force Tank Dell, even though he's lower in my rankings, to make sure I have some percentages. Diggs, I will be okay missing out. Because I do think Diggs is probably going to be operating in the slot. This is just kind of a hunch feeling based on like the Robert Woods acquisition last year, or not but where he kind of was supposed to operate, them potentially going after Keenan Allen, who would likely have been in the slot primarily, and then just Diggs at this stage in his career and what the other guys can do.
Yeah.
Diggs struggled down the field last year, whether it was just, timing or just having bad games, who knows. But Nico better down the field. And to me, Diggs seems like he would be the best fit in the slot. And I think in this offense, that's probably the area of the field that I value the least. So that's where those rankings came from.
So, Dio, you're not a guy who does rankings, don't like rankings, will never do rankings, but you're sort of I'm going to let the draft come to me. I'm going to fill it out, feel how this particular room is.
Yeah.
What do you think about Avi's rankings and how he kind of breaks it up into tiers here?
How you gonna preface the question with all that and then ask me how do I think about the rankings?
Because
You
I
literally
want you
just
to
told me I
think
don't
about
care about rankings. They
his
say, how do you feel
process.
about these rankings?
Because I want you to talk about his process and whether you can find some value in looking at someone else's process.
I mean, tell us what you do when you see rankings.
I mean, I ignore them. I mean,
Okay.
because I can talk myself into.
Next question.
I can talk myself into every single situation. I
Yeah.
can see. I mean, I can see how people in the 30s can end up being wide receiver ones. Like I can literally play every scenario out. It's always about roles to me. I'm always trying to get people in the best roles.
Give
and
me a
that's how I
scenario
kinda determine
where
who I
Jordan
like.
Addison is the receiver one.
Jordan Addison. I mean, if Justin Jefferson goes down.
He still ain't receiver. I still don't think that he could give you a receiver.
I mean, you might
one
think
out there.
that, but the
You
guy
think-
was a first-round pick. He's a highly touted prospect. If Justin Jefferson goes down, Addison becomes the number one. He's gonna probably have a lot of reps with the quarterback, the rookie quarterback there, or who's the guy they have now? Darnold. He
Yeah.
was there before, so. I mean, easily he can
yeah.
be. I mean, he's in the position to be the number one there.
You could, and like Dale, I can make an argument for a lot of these guys. So it's for me in my mind, it's like, okay, where do the pros outweigh the cons, and then the rankings sort of kind of fall suit. But like with the Jordan Addison, like I could definitely see how he could end up being a top 12 wide receiver. I think it's unlikely, but the scenario is just simply look at the Rams. Their head coach, who calls plays and who is a mastermind behind that offense, is a Sean McVay disciple. We just saw Puka Nacua
I think
and
that's
Cup.
overrated, but good.
But I don't. But let's just say like they could have a kind of a Puka Nacua Cup, 1A 1B type situation. Yes, Justin Jefferson's absolutely amazing, but remember, T.J. Hawkinson's hurt, coming back from ACL. We don't know when he's going to come back. Last year they didn't run the ball very well. Maybe that's different this year with Aaron Jones. Maybe he does a little bit better job in his run scheme. But this team, like last year, depended on T.J. Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson, and T.J. Hawkinson gave you very, very good numbers. Very, very good
Not
numbers
to mention,
as a tight
Addison
end.
is going into his second year.
And he's going into the second, exactly.
I mean, we
So-
don't know what kind of ceiling he has at this point.
So
But last
that's-
year he had. I mean,
yeah.
look at all those games he had in double digits. The guy has talent. He was lucky in the
Yeah.
touchdown department, of course, but he has talent. So it's not like he can't produce if given the opportunity. I think with him, it's just really about the opportunity. And right now with Justin Jefferson, we know the opportunity is probably capped.
Yeah.
But again, this is football. It's a game of attrition. Anybody can get hurt. Jefferson got hurt,
Yeah.
last year. So it is what it is. But as far as when I look at rankings, going to the question you asked, I mean, I just kind of think, like, what are we doing with these rankings? Is it the rankings you use where it's like when you're on the clock, whoever is at the top of your rankings, that's who you pick? Or is it just where it's like this is like how you come, but when you're drafting, you really just draft for feel? Like, I guess I'm always questioning, like, what are we doing with rankings? Because I'm a very fluid, and I'm not only fluid with who I select, but also how, like, it ain't just about specific players, but like, say for instance, I always kind of hesitate when I have when there's a highly touted receiver and a highly touted running back that are ranked high. For instance, this year, A.J. Brown and Barkley. Would I take them both on the same team? I don't know right now at this moment. If I'm in the moment, I might say no. Or I might say, F it. Let's go all in and let me try to get Hurts as well, But is that due to my rankings or is that more so team construct, One of those things where it's like I don't draft as much as Abby, but I draft a fair amount to where it's like if I have a whole bunch of DK Metcalf, who I'm also high on this year, am I also going to take DK Metcalf another draft when I don't have as much Cooper Kupp, and I like Cooper Kupp almost as much, if not a little bit more? So that's kind of how I play things out. Rankings are cool to look at because I think it's more of like a barbershop thing. You can argue about anybody being higher than lower. And let's be real, right? Like, say he has Tyreek Hill as number 1, and some people have CeeDee Lamb as number 1. You can have one week where Tyreek Hill scores 35 points and CeeDee Lamb scores 20. The next week, CeeDee Lamb scores 35 points and Tyreek scored 20. Like, who is down the higher ranked guy? You know, because football is a game of peaks and valleys. So, but again, like Abby said, people like to see rankings. You know, it looks pretty on the board. Like they like seeing these players. They like getting excited when, you know, confirmation bias. If somebody you like and the guy that has the rankings has a guy higher, you're like, yay. If they got him lower, you're like, man, the dude doesn't know what they're talking about, right?
I'm definitely not getting much confirmation bias with this. There is one guy on this list that I have moved up significantly, A.J. Brown.
You moved him out from where you have him on here? Or
I moved him up.
Or this is, he's higher than where he is now?
Yeah, he's higher than where he is right now.
Okay, so where you have him?
I have A.J. Brown at number 5 now.
As a tier up, or he's in the same tier? Just
he's above Amon-Ra for me. And
what I'm saying is, is he in that higher tier?
Yeah, he's definitely in that higher tier. Yeah, he's definitely in that higher tier.
Is Amon-Ra still in that tier, or does he come down?
He's still in that tier. He's still in that tier. He's still in that tier. Yeah.
Well, look, if you were to ask another type of question, who do I feel like Abby has too low or too high?
Yeah.
Oh, I definitely think he has Tank Dell too low.
Okay.
Way, way too low. I think he has Cooper Kupp and Malik Neighbors too low. I think he has Debo too high. I think he has Nico too high. Let's see. I think he has Christian Watson too high. I think that Packers offense might literally be every week a different wide receiver one on that team. Like they literally have like 5 legit receivers that can all produce if given the opportunity.
What do you think about the Odunze and JSN?
I love Odunze. I like his talent.
You think that's too high?
I think I'd probably have. So this is the interesting. Okay, so this is another issue with rankings, right? Like, I like Keenan Allen early, and I think he probably has the safest floor. But then as the season plays out, I could see Odunze really like turning up.
Exactly.
You know, later in the season.
That's exactly why I got him.
So it's like, how do I rank him there, right?
That's exactly why I got him there.
Depends on what I want on my team.
That's exactly why I got him there.
Jackson Smith-Njigba, I'm still not sure about. Like Tyler Lockett is not dead. Like, he may not be as high ceiling as he used to be, but he still produced every single year. He's still there. They haven't demoted him yet from what I've seen.
Marquise Brown's going to come off of this list too as well. And
I'm actually high on Mark. We talked about it last week. Was it last week, the part that didn't go out?
Yeah.
We talked about how,
we talked about
for me, I'm about, we talked about a lot. But for me, how, I feel like one of those Chiefs receivers are undervalued. We might not know who exactly the player is, but I think one of them are really going to, supersede where people have them viewed right now. I definitely think they're going to at least be one of the top 24 receivers. And you got the highest Chiefs receiver on this list at 37. So that's 13 spots. 13. And you're going to bring him even lower.
I'm going to bring him down, but I'm going to bring Rice up.
Okay, so there you go. But somebody there I feel like is being undervalued. It's just that you kind of have to figure out who it is, and it's not a perfect sign. So that's how I view it. I also feel like, I feel like Pittman is too high. I'm not a Pittman guy this year.
Yeah, 26 too high.
Okay. But yeah, everything else I'm cool with. Again, we talked about it last week as well. I like how you have Sutton there because I feel like Sutton is being super undervalued by the community. I was shocked when I realized where he was going. I literally got in our group chat like, what the hell is going on with Sutton? Like, he's way, way too low.
He's a tough one because that one I definitely don't feel good about. But for right now, I'm gonna follow. What I'm planning on doing is Denver is one of those teams that is at the top of my list as far as off-season news and just kind of following camp reports and really just diving into trying to figure out what is going on in that situation. Same thing with the Chargers, but for right now, agree. Sutton right now he's the number one in that offense.
I'm not a big believer in Olave this year.
Oh, I am. I'm not a big believer in Zay Flowers. I just don't think that.
You have Zay on here? Where's Zay at?
Zay's at 36.
I feel like that's right.
But the fact that he made the list and Keenan Allen didn't, considering that, I think.
I would say Zay is the wide receiver 1 on the Ravens, and I can't guarantee Keenan Allen's even the wide receiver 2.
Mark Andrews is the receiver 1 for the Ravens, but
the thing, this is the tough thing about the Ravens. Actually, the reason that I have Zay Flowers is not because at 36, not because I dislike Zay Flowers or because I think Mark Andrews is just going to absolutely dominate targets, and I do like Mark Andrews this year. is because I really think that they're probably going to go back to a more, run-centric offense. I think that's basically what they've told us in the offseason with the lack of wide receiver talent brought in and bringing Derrick Henry. I think they're really going to lean on that. I think, if their defense allows and their, game script allows, I think that is going to be their primary mode of action. I think they're going to go back to kind of the 2022 Lamar.
But wait, but that doesn't make sense.
They could still be, very profitable.
But that doesn't make sense because you said because they didn't bring anybody in to the receiver group and they brought in Derrick Henry. If they did bring somebody in, wouldn't that hurt Zay Flowers' value, in your opinion?
But I think it's going to be less volume in the passing game is what I'm saying.
I don't think they have a choice, right? It's a passing league. Like, you can try to run all you want, but they got to throw the ball.
They're one of the one teams that I think can get away with that. Between Lamar and between Derrick Henry, I think they're one of the teams.
I mean, don't forget Greg Roman's not there no more. Greg Roman was the guy that the engine behind the run, pound the ball. I would honestly argue maybe they might pass more this year now that they have a who is their OC this year?
Todd Monken. It's the same guy. They started off the season, and this is what I recall just from watching the games. They started off the season very pass heavy, but these passes were a lot of screens.
But don't forget, Mark Andrews was also hurt.
Yeah, but this is when Mark Andrews wasn't hurt. They started off pass heavy.
They kind of finished pass heavy too, because that was kind of the reason why.
Remember the first game, Zay Flowers had a million targets.
They had a monster game against San Francisco, but for the most part, I feel like they transitioned more towards. I don't know. I just got a vibe that this is going to be a lot of Derrick Henry, Lamar on the ground, and then they'll take their play action passes. You see Andrews, Zay will get his. I don't see the reason he's that low for me is because I don't see him finishing as a wide receiver one.
I think he's kind of overrated.
Yeah, everyone above him, I can see finishing as a wide receiver one. I don't see it as there.
Yeah, a poor man's Tank Dell.
Yeah,
but you really high on Tank, man. I get he went.
You know what's crazy?
School, but,
I was thinking about this earlier today, actually. If Tank Dell didn't get hurt, the respect y'all have for Tank Dell would be worlds more than where you have him now. But
he's not really hurt now, right? Yeah.
I said if he didn't get hurt.
If he didn't get hurt, and he
you mean in the season?
Yeah. If he played out the full season.
Gotcha.
Because if you look at the numbers of Tank and Nico while they were both healthy, they were actually very similar.
Yeah.
If anything, Tank probably had a little bit higher ceiling and more touchdowns. But y'all got to also remember, Tank Dell didn't start off the season immediately in the rotation heavy.
Right.
He really started to come on game maybe 2 or 3.
But that's not worried with
now with Nico was initially day one a starter, entrenched starter, a veteran, if you will, it was his third season. So Tank Dell, in my opinion, was still ascending. And as Texans fan, I'm assuming y'all have seen this game. There's at least a couple games where Tank Dell makes some real and it was called back for a stupid penalty. So his season could have even been bigger.
But that's my issue with Tank Dell, and that's why I brought up the point with Nico Collins as far as he's not leaving the field, given his body type. You remember the play that Tank Dell got hurt on?
Yeah.
And then you remember them specifically asking the OC
there was a run play within the 5-yard line.
He got hurt blocking.
He can't
And you remember them asking the OC why did you have this guy in there even blocking in the first place? Revisionist history, but still you got to imagine that, he is a guy that got hurt blocking. We don't necessarily need him in there. And I'm not saying it's going to hurt his value significantly.
But that's not a big deal. It's almost like saying tight ends that you don't want tight ends that don't know how to block because they're not going to be in the field. I don't care if he doesn't know how to block. I want him on the way I viewed that scenario, I was like, the coach wants Tank Dell on the field so much that for a player that he shouldn't even be on the field because he's not going to give you much value, he still had him out there because he wants to always utilize this weapon as much as he can. That's the way I viewed it. And again, in a future scenario, same situation, he might not have Tank Dell do that thing. It would be stupid for him to do it. But it also, in my mind, tells me that, when they do decide to actually pass, he wins. But again,
I agree. But I agree with that. But what I'm saying is that, if you're running, especially in this type of offense, if you're running a certain formation, you can run multiple looks out of it. Mm-hmm. When you bring certain people in and out of the field, you're this is what we're planning on doing.
I mean, but maybe it's a situation where they just don't run that type of play anymore. Because what it was,
we don't know.
It was Tank Dell. I think he motioned inside, and then he kind of cracked block, right?
Yeah.
They didn't have to do that. They could just ran a regular run play.
Trust me, I know. So, I'm just saying But what I'm saying is just that, like, I feel like.
And again, but
Yeah,
again, this
yeah.
remember, this is not me. We didn't start off by me saying Tank over Nico.
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
know everybody has
Yeah.
a preference. He was just asking, I'm high on Tank.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And what I'm really saying is, I don't think people realize how high of a ceiling he has or had, whatever the way you want to say it. And I feel like this year he'll show. And maybe I don't know.
So how do you rank the three?
Like remember when the Steelers had AB and Mike Wallace?
Mm-hmm.
Like at the time, it's crazy because obviously people could be like, Dale's on some revisionist history. But at the time, I literally was telling everybody, because Mike Wallace was a wide receiver 1 then.
Yeah.
AB was a wide receiver 2 / punt returner.
Yeah, you saw AB play. You was like,
And he ran a punt one day, right? And he just went crazy. I was like, who is this small, little receiver? Because I don't think he was
Peter
like a
Ward
starting
got that,
receiver either.
Yeah.
But I was like, look at the way he's moving. Touch this dude.
Yeah.
And then he kept getting a little bit more PT. And I think around that time, Mike Wallace was also trying to angle to get a new contract.
Mike Tomlin also didn't like AB. Like
I don't know what it was, but I was like, man.
Roethlisberger had to actually force him. At least that's what that person.
I was like this. It's crazy. It's funny. It's funny looking back at that because I was like, man, you know what? They should let Mike Wallace walk because AB is. Antonio Brown. This Antonio Brown guy is nice, and he's like well mannered. Like he's because remember he used to wear like a suit. He smiled real nice to the camera. I was
Before the
thinking,
hits.
I used to think he was on drugs. He was just smiling at the camera.
Well, man.
And I like, man, this dude's not a problem. Like it's cool.
not a problem.
Now look,
That's crazy.
scenario. I think.
But real quick before we move on, rank the three Texas wide
Texas
receivers.
receivers?
Yeah.
Tank, Nico, Diggs.
Okay.
That's easy for me. I've been consistent with that the whole time.
Man, that's crazy. Hey guys, if you've been enjoying this podcast, please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button, especially if you got any value out of this podcast. Guys, I want to turn to the Kansas City Chiefs for a bit. Let's do a breakdown of the Kansas City Chiefs. We talked about Hollywood for a bit. We also need to talk about Kelsey, whether he's overrated. I think we talked about him a little bit in prior podcasts, but I want to break down the Kansas City Chiefs just a little more. Because I see Pacheco going really high. I've seen him go
Where's Pacheco going?
As high as the second round. I've seen.
He's a second round? No, he's not a second
I think he
round.
lives in the third round.
He kind of lives in the third, fourth round. Yeah.
But I've seen him go as high as the second. Let's break down the Kansas City Chiefs. How do you guys sort of rank that receiver room? I mean, I know that we've kind of talked about Rashee Rice potentially not being suspended.
Just
for the record.
For the record, Dale's the one that said he will not be suspended this year, and they said something else. So just put that
Hey,
out
no,
there.
I didn't say something else. I think he's going to be suspended in 2025. I think he's going to be suspended at some point. I don't necessarily know it's going to be this year. You don't think he's going to be suspended at all?
No, I don't think he's going to
And I
suspend
think
this
he's going to
year.
be suspended this
No, I
year.
don't think he's going to be suspended. I think he's going to be suspended next year.
That's what I feel. That's what I feel.
But, how do you rate that room? How do you rank that room?
So at first thing we got to do is talk about what they did. Because they did a lot in the offseason. Okay, so one, they won the Super Bowl.
Yep.
And they won the Super Bowl with defense and kind of to some degree off the back of Pacheco in those cold winter months. I think it's important to note that Kelsey was injured to start the season and kind of battling injuries. Rashee Rice was a rookie in an Andy Reid offense, and typically rookies in Andy Reid offenses take a while. Remember, Tyreek Hill didn't come into the league just, putting up wide receiver ones right out the gate. And what we saw this year was, or during the offseason, was them bring in Marquise Brown, them draft Xavier Worthy, okay, re-sign McCole Hardman, and then they still got a whole other list of guys that nobody ever wants to talk about.
Dang,
but
what a year!
Somehow they
what a year
find-
makes, Chris.
Yeah.
Last year, this man would have been first receiver. They got Justin Ross. Just chilling
I was
right
getting there. You interrupted me. I was getting there.
No, last year would have been the first receiver. Justin Ross, and then the rest of these bums.
Yeah, Justin Ross and the rest of these bums. Don't even worry about anybody else. Justin Ross and the rest of these, yeah. And still got Scott Moore. Scott Moore, stop laughing. Got Scott Moore. People heard randomly on the radio, people talking about Nico Remigio. But honestly, but seriously though, everyone, I think everyone is talking about and kind of envisions the return of the Kansas City Chiefs offense because they're drafting it as such as far as Patrick Mahomes. He was not a good fantasy quarterback last year. Points per game, he was not. Don't look at the end of the year numbers. Look at the points per game. If you drafted Patrick Mahomes, I guarantee you there were weeks where you were considered starting him or Jake Browning and random guys like that. Patrick Mahomes struggled last year, and I won't say struggled from an NFL standpoint, but from a fantasy standpoint. And that is due to a variety of different reasons. Defense being good, them wanting to kind of stick with the run. Teams playing cover 2, cover 3, not really letting them go over the top. MVS and other wide receivers not really, playing to what they should have played to as a professional NFL player. So obviously they brought in a lot of speed guys. The league to me is not going to change how they play them. Mm-hmm. The reason that the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes sort of kind of went to the short intermediate passing game is because teams were taking away the deep balls. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they got guys in to go deep, and I still think they want to take the shots, and that's what we're hearing out of the camp report. But that doesn't mean the teams are going to be like, okay, you guys got Marquise Brown now. Okay, we're gonna start playing cover 2, stop playing cover 3, stop playing, stop forcing you guys to take the short and intermediate route. I don't necessarily know that that's the case. The way that I envision it, and I can be completely wrong, the way that I envision is that guys like Marquise Brown, McCole Hardman, Xavier Worthy when he's on the field are going to be field stretchers. Yes, they're going to have games. There are plenty of times we can all think back to last year when MVS was just wide open down the field. And we're going to see Marquise Brown in that same type fashion. But I do not envision Marquise Brown as like the new wide receiver one in this offense. I don't envision him as the Tyreek Hill. To me, I envision him as that guy who's going to help take the top off the defense, help push these safeties back, and I still feel like it's going to be Rashee Rice and more specifically Travis Kelce who are going to eat underneath. They're going to take their shots deep, but I think a lot of the receptions are going to come from those two guys. So I'm kind of buying the dip on Kelce this year. Mm-hmm. He is old, so I'm being a bit cautious with it, but I love where he's going in drafts right now and where I can get him, especially in tight end premium leagues. Yeah. But even in underdog, I love where he's going as well. And Rashee Rice, we talked about, the potential of him not getting suspended at all.
Yeah.
He balled out at the end of last year. Yes, it was on a lot of short and intermediate stuff and screen passes and but remember, this was his first year. Mm-hmm. And he came from an offense that really wasn't, to me, like a pro-style offense. And he was very raw. If you talk to a lot of people who projected him, he didn't come out as like the most skilled route runner or like the most, he wasn't a technician as some of his other counterparts. So now he's entering into his second year. And even though you had all the bad publicity throughout the offseason, I think what kind of gets buried is that, you still have some reports coming out saying that he's looking really, really good in camp. So I still have him as, and I'm a change the rankings, but I have him as my top wide receiver. And just from a value standpoint, forget about the ranks. I would much rather have Rashee Rice over Marquise Brown.
Oh, wow. Much rather?
Much rather have. In a vacuum, I'm taking Rashee Rice over Marquise Brown 100% of the time. It's not even close. And remember, if you listen to our pods in 2022, 2021, I was a Marquise Brown fan. This has nothing to do with me not liking Marquise Brown as a player. I just don't think he's that type of player. I don't think he's that type of guy.
Kansas City Chiefs offense.
I said it.
Let's talk about Pacheco for a second. I want to look at his numbers a bit. Again, for a guy who has been drafted, let's say third round, do you think that last year's production warrants us to believe that he's going to take a step forward? Why? Give me the argument for Pacheco.
I don't think he's valued. If he's valued in the third or even the fourth, I don't think his value is him taking a step forward. I think his value is just duplicating what he did last year, and he was able to produce with the amount of volume he got. He was efficient with his volume, and they utilized him. Like Abby was saying, there was a team that kind of leaned on their defense, which allowed them to have to go aerial as much. And Pacheco, he just runs and gets what's there, runs through arm tackles.
Runs through a closed door.
They were a team where, they gave him a lot of red zone opportunities more than I think they've in the past given their running backs. And then the games where they were leading, they had no problem just giving him the ball and letting him run out the clock. So I think that's where his value was. Now, if you don't think he's going to be as efficient next year, or if like Abby's was saying, if you think they're going to be more of a passing team this year compared to where they were last year, then Pacheco's probably overvalued, because I don't think he's the type of player where if he doesn't get the amount of volume, he's going to do as well. And maybe I think I said he was efficient. I guess that's the opposite of efficient. He basically needs volume to do a lot. If he doesn't have volume, he's not going to do as much. And in the passing game, now he did a little bit better, but he's still not a real true passing threat. You're not going to see Pacheco motion out to the wide and run real routes regularly. So,
but even in the screen game, I just feel like he never did much with his.
He didn't get much,
receptions.
but and I know they didn't re-sign him, but Jerick McKinnon was hurt last year, right? And I don't know if they replace his type of profile with another player. Maybe they end up using Rashee Rice in that role, or whatever. But I just know they've never really decided to use Pacheco in the pass game, a lot, unless necessary. So is he valued too high? I don't think so. Again, if you believe what he did last year, is like you believe the Chiefs are going to be a similar type of team. And, if you were a betting person, that would probably be the better bet because, historically you've seen it be done, But like Abby was saying, and I kind of believe it as well, I think this team is going to pass a little bit more last year. And I feel like he might. I wouldn't take him. Like, I don't think I have much Pacheco at all. It might be a mistake. It is what it is. But I don't have it because I just don't truly believe in his situation.
I'm in agreement. I just got this weird feeling that, like, even though they won the Super Bowl and they're, obviously ecstatic about that, that Andy Reid and Mahomes are like, they must have forgotten. Like, maybe he's feeling a little slight that, like, he's not getting the credit or hearing kind of people talk about, like, how they really leaned on their defense or how his game fell. Maybe a little bit. But I just feel like players that are that competitive, they know, like, when they're not putting up numbers or maybe they didn't have the best of year or, like, even if it was the fault of his wide receivers dropping passes, Mahomes is probably the type that's still going to put that on him and is going to want to come back, not really take anything for granted, and really try to make sure he comes out.
Let's be real about the situation. Like, they signed a highly, maybe not as highly touted as he's been in the past, but Hollywood Brown is a respectful receiver in the league. He was a former first-round pick. They drafted in the first round who they traded up for, by the way. Let's not forget that. I'm always very, very high on players that are traded up for, but they traded up to draft Xavier Worthy in the first round. Rashee Rice, he's going into his second year.
Yep.
Again, that second year bump. Like, you're right. The beginning of the season, they didn't really use him as much. As the season progressed, they used him a lot more. And obviously, when this season starts, especially if he's not suspended, they're going to use him day one.
Yeah.
So now he's going to have a full season to kind of play at that same level. Kels hopefully is not as injured as he was last year. He is older, and Father Time catches up to everybody, but he's also a tight end. Tight ends are like power forwards. They just, jog out to a space, get body position and catch the ball. We're not really, Kelsey's not the guy that used to be yards after catch a receiver like he used to be in the past, so that's not even what you're expecting anyway. So you have all these offensive weapons all out there that can catch the ball. Again, they still got Justin Ross. They still got Sky Moore, former second-round pick. They still got Kadarius Toney, a former first-round pick. Like, they have receiving
Justin
weapons. I think I said Justin Ross, but
okay,
yeah, they do have receiver, and then Justin Watson too. He's still there too, who they like a lot as well. If anything, you might be able to say Justin Watson was their best receiver last year. So they go from him being
not
the
best, but like
most productive at least. I mean, I don't know.
Not most productive. He wasn't more productive than Rice, but I know what you're saying.
I mean,
like, and he may actually see like the second most snaps.
But think about it. He was one of their top receivers last year. And now, when you talk about the Chiefs receiver, you kind of forget about him.
Yeah,
like that's how they revamped their. I mean, we'll see how it goes. Now, with all that being said, and going back to Abby's points that we were speaking of just a moment ago, I'm higher on Hollywood. I do think Hollywood is somebody that's undervalued. I think Hollywood has the ability to separate really well. He has the speed. I have seen instances where Hollywood was the number one receiver for two teams when they actually decided to throw him the ball and like make him the centerpiece, and he actually was effective and he produced. Now, what the Chiefs do for him, I don't know, but I don't think Hollywood is just a downfield stretcher. I don't think he's just a deep threat. I've seen Hollywood literally run very clean, crisp routes. He just needs the quarterback to get him the ball and the offense to get him the ball. So, I mean, this season he has no excuse, right? Like, you have the ultimate quarterback, the ultimate offense, the ultimate offensive coach. And he don't forget that motivating factor. Like,
he didn't get much of a contract.
Exactly. He's playing this year to make money.
You know what I need?
Because if he doesn't do good this year, he might be done, right?
I need a perception for all the Chiefs wide receivers. Matt Harmon, get on that.
You're gonna have to add him.
He's not going. Somebody add Matt Harmon. Tell him to get on that.
Guys, let's stay in the AFC West for a second. If you look at the vast majority of FFPC drafts, I think you'll see Gus Edwards go first. Sometimes you'll see J.K. Dobbins go second, and then Kamani Vital. Sometimes you'll see Kamani Vital go ahead of J.K. Dobbins. Vidal, Vital.
I don't know if it's Vidal.
Right.
Sounds better.
But you'll see Kamani then go. I think we've all sort of presumed that Gus is going to be the starting running back for the Chargers. I'm not sure if that's the case. Again, Gus is banged up. Again, there's also this video that I posted inside the group chat that shows JK looks pretty good. I know, but my man looks pretty good. Catching the ball out the backfield. How do you guys feel about this Chargers running back room?
That was with the first team too.
With the first team?
I keep saying, like, who else was going to be with the first team?
Exactly, I know.
Gus is hurt.
I know,
like,
exactly.
Other than it would have been Vidal, y'all would have went crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot, Vidal's with the first team.
Yeah.
Spiller's still there. Like, he knows that offense.
It's there. He doesn't know the offense. This is a new offense.
Well, I mean,
Spiller might not make the team, man.
Yeah, he's probably not gonna make the team. He's trash.
they're still familiar with him.
They're not familiar. It's a whole new regime.
It's the Harbaugh regime.
Well,
He's probably not making the team. I don't honestly. This is a situation like I told you guys Denver was like number 1 on my list. The Chargers are number 2 on my list as far as following training camp closely. Mm-hmm. I think I started off drafting pretty aggressively Gus Edwards just because he was going super late, and he's a guy that especially around the draft time when people really focusing on rookies. Nobody wants to click the button on Gus Edwards, even in a run heavy scheme. Even with him being potentially the presumed starter,
and him having familiarity with the OC.
OC,
like he knows
GM,
the system.
Yeah,
he's just doing the same thing he's been doing for the last 3 years.
Exactly. So for me,
and he got a 2-year contract, and the GM said he was going to be the bell cow.
Yeah. So I have tons more Gus Edwards than I do any of these guys, just because that's just kind of how it's played out. Mm-hmm. What we've seen now though is his ADP start to rise up. I've just been completely off of J.K. Dobbins. Only because of the Achilles injury. Mm-hmm. If I'm gonna be wrong on that, I'm gonna be wrong. I just can't. At some point, I just gotta. That clip definitely made me think twice. Mm-hmm. That clip, you know how you can have a strong take and then you kind of keep it to yourself.
Just
you're like,
kind of
okay,
soften on it. Just
you're like,
Yeah.
So that definitely made me think twice. I probably need to see more. I'll just need to see more. Right now, his ADP is not super high. Maybe I need to force myself, but really,
is it more of a best ball play?
Honestly, I have 0 shares right now through Best Ball and through FFPC. I'm not seeing that changing anytime in the near future, but maybe that if I see more clips like that, we'll see. Kamani Vidal, though, he is definitely a player that I will be drafting quite a bit of.
Why?
So just because
I see nothing special with him. I see absolutely nothing special.
True.
Horrible draft capital.
True. I can't argue any of that. I
Competition in college was weak.
Yeah, I don't have a strong take.
His name is not that cool.
Kamani Vidal?
That's not a cool name.
That's not a cool name.
Kamani Vidal.
It's a weird name.
Yeah. No.
Kamani Vidal.
Can't pass block.
Y'all don't watch anime, do y'all? Do you?
No.
Okay, if y'all watch anime, y'all would love that name.
No.
Anyway,
so his name off an anime character?
No, it's not anime.
Even
It
worse.
sounds like anime. But when you just look at the RB room and his competition, we know what Gus Edwards is. Nobody, there's a reason that even with all these comments and even with the contract and even with him having experience in the system, he's still going into double-digit rounds. Mm-hmm. The market is pretty accurate. Not I won't say accurate, but the market. Take on Gus Edwards is that he's a Jag basically, right? So those are just situations that I want to attack. Plus, if he goes down again, if I have 0 J.K. Dobbins, I'm not going to have just 100% of Gus Edwards from the Chargers. So to me, he's a hedge bet. He's a rookie. This regime drafted him. Okay, they drafted him. So he's just to me one of those guys that injury occurs, or if just Gus just looking kind of just your typical Jag, and he shows something in the training camp. He'll start off getting just kind of 5-6 touches a game, but if he's more productive than Gus Edwards, which I don't think would be a tough thing, you could potentially see his
team of low
So real
speed.
quick, that last point as far as them drafting him. I mean, they kind of had to draft somebody. They only had Spiller on the roster. They
drafted him.
They literally signed 2 guys, and they still needed more. I mean, have nobody else on the roster,
but
right?
They drafted him.
I know. I'm just saying. Okay, so if they would have drafted Gerard whatever the Texans.
Jawar.
But they didn't.
Okay.
For a reason.
I'll give you that. Okay, I'll give you that. Okay, so anyway, I think a lot of things you're saying are the reason why, in my opinion, the choice is really J.K. Dobbins to who you should be drafting. For the reason you're saying, because if you're saying we're going in thinking Gus Edwards is a starter, yet we're still drafting him late because we feel like he's a jag and he doesn't have a high ceiling, and then we're also looking at this other rookie who's a 5th-round pick who was a highly touted guy. Guy probably didn't even know who he was before the draft. I mean, of course you do your research, Abby, but most people didn't have any idea who he was. And then the guy, again, 5th-round pick, and there's not much historical success with 5th-round picks. But then you look at J.K. Dobbins, who's number 1, a 2nd-round pick, highly touted college running back. Yeah, he got hurt, but he got hurt week 1 last year. He's going to be playing with the same coach he has familiarity with. He's also on a prove-it deal. He's on a 1-year deal. Like, if he doesn't make this go around, his career is probably over with.
Probably.
So, and then on top of that, again, I play the game, especially in the late rounds in fantasy football. I play the game where I'm looking for high ceilings. I'm looking for the gem that I can actually one day be surprised that I can actually put him in my starting lineup. Not somebody where I'm only playing him because my guy is hurt or I'm on a bye week, And I feel like J.K. Dobbins is the one that gives you that. And if he doesn't give you that, he's an easy cut. While somebody like Gus Edwards, if he's giving me that steady Eddie, barely minimum, points a game, yeah, you can play him, but are you really excited?
Yeah.
Your ceiling's low. So especially when we're talking about tournaments, man, you're trying to aim for the skies. So you're trying.
I want to do something a little different. Normally, we end the episodes by talking about dynasty.
I still got to talk about all my players because all the guys I said last week, we didn't put the pod out.
All right.
So I got to say all those guys over again.
But we always finish with dynasty. This time, I want to talk about best ball because we never really talk about best ball. It's an entirely different beast, and I know that we've been drafting quite a bit of best ball teams. I know I'm late to the party, but I just got on Underdog, and I just started drafting.
Well, you've been doing
my best
drafters.
stuff. Yeah.
Shout out to drafters.
Yeah, I've been doing drafters.
Drafters, send us some money so we can promote your stuff, man.
But let's talk about some of those like best ball players that often go undrafted who should be drafted. I'll start it off because in that same clip or in the same sort of video, DJ Shark, like he actually called the play. I want this to go to Shark. I want to see what he can do. And I think with that receiver room being so weak, I think it's one of the weakest in the entire NFL. I think DJ Shark could be one of those best ball players who could surprise people and actually turn out to be a receiver 2 output there, which can win you some money, if people are not actually drafting him. So I think DJ Shark should be somebody that people should actually think about drafting in best ball. But who are some of those late best ball picks that you guys kind of push the button on?
Yeah, I think guys like that are not bad bets. One, you got to understand the format that you're in. Like we said, like we talked about with drafters, that's like a total point format. Whereas with Underdog, those money weeks, are everything. Everything. So could DJ Chark have just...
You got to get to the money weeks first, though.
You do got to get to the money weeks. But could DJ Chark have just crazy week? I mean, if he's healthy, with Justin Herbert as his, quarterback, it's a potential. That is a wide receiver room where there is some quite a bit of ambiguity. For me, I've been going towards, one of my all-time faves, Hayden Hurst. He goes undrafted. He's a tight end that you can get super late. But I kind of like attacking that just room in general because Herbert goes so late. Because this is just one of those offense that people are assuming is not going to have a really good passing game. It's funny. It's just like, and this is like the world and humanity in general. We just make the same mistakes over and over and over again. Literally, this was the Texans last year. New regime, new head coach, new offensive coordinator. People were like, this offense is going to suck. They didn't like the quarterback. Everything, the Texans, the highest drafted Texans receiver last year was Schultz, right?
Receiver?
Or receiver was Dalton Schultz. I believe Dalton Schultz
Probably was Dalton
I think he was the
Schultz,
highest the receiving option being drafted. So
I think it was Nico, but okay.
Nico was going in double-digit rounds.
I think Schultz was too, though.
Yeah. Okay. I guess in best ball maybe. Yeah. Best ball maybe. But yeah, so this is like one of those situations where I'm just like, all right, look, let's not just completely ignore that receiving option. You know, that receiving
my
role.
pushback. I'm gonna push back on that because I don't like that comparison. I think that the thing that people missed out on the Texans last year, and again, I'm a Texans fan, so I look at the I like scientifically like research the Texans on a daily basis, bro. Like it's crazy. But the thing about the Texans people didn't take into account last year was the OC because the OC was an unknown. People didn't know Bobby Slowick.
People
They
were aware.
They didn't know Bobby.
They knew where he came from.
They knew where he came from, but they didn't
Yes.
know who he was. So
But-
they didn't really know the type of offense he was going to run. They just knew he was just a guy that came from the 49ers. He wasn't even the OC in the 49ers.
But the assumption was that he was bringing over the,
But you can bring over I mean, there's a lot of teams that brought over the offense.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of teams that bring over offenses where it doesn't play out the same way.
Yeah.
You know, so they didn't know what was going to come from that. The difference is we know very well what type of offense Roman runs, and we know very well what type of offense Harbaugh runs.
Yeah.
And both intersect that run down your throat offense.
but look, again, so you can say that, but one, when was the last time they had a quarterback like Justin Herbert? Two, Roman was with Lamar when he had his MVP type season and he torched the league.
Yeah, but
when he had Marquise Brown and he had Mark Andrews.
But he was still running a lot.
But and this is my thing. You can still run and still have an effective pass game.
I mean, I get it, but what I'm saying is it was still a running offense where the passing game was effective, yes, but it was still a running
It was
offense.
hella effective.
But it was still a running offense. The point I'm making is it like that team. It was a running offense, and then Harbaugh was a running coach. So now you got them together now. And if you're a betting man, obviously you would say, okay, most likely you would assume it's going to be a running offense. And I think with the Texans, because people didn't realize, because here's the question y'all should have been asking. Instead of asking who was the top receiving drafted player for the Texans, y'all should be asking who was the top drafted player from the Texans. That was Dameon Pierce. Because people saw what he did his rookie year. He got hurt at the end of the year, and they thought now that he's healthy, Dameon Pierce was going to be the focal point of the Texas offense.
Well-
Dameon Pierce was the guy people were drafting literally in the top 7 rounds in drafts last
Because
year.
they thought he was going to be the RB1 in a Shanahan type offense.
Exactly.
And
That's what they thought.
What we did know is that he can't run outside zone for the life. For his life.
Dale knew.
Well, what the public didn't know
Dale
is that
kept trying to tell y'all too. Don't draft Dameon Pierce. Devin Singletary was the guy. But anyway, that's besides the point. So going back to DJ Shark.
By the way, Nico and Schultz were going around the same.
That's what I thought. It's
10th round
probably
was around the same.
interchangeable.
Yeah.
The only pushback I have with Shark is I think they still like Joshua Palmer. He's the one that has the most rapport there with Herbert right now. Ladd McConkey was drafted high in the 2nd round. And then I don't think they've given up on Quentin Johnson. Like at some point it's like, because the GM I think is still there. Maybe I'm wrong. But at some point, they're like, man, we drafted this guy in the 1st round.
Yeah.
We're going to try to prove to y'all.
Yeah, I think he's just mentioned. He started off by mentioning players who are undrafted.
Right, but he said he could be wide receiver 2. And that's my
Yeah,
pushback.
because we knew how bad Quentin Johnson. I'm
Oh, yeah,
drafted.
I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see that. I guess I'm just trying to argue the other way. So my guys. Did you say your guy hated Hurst? Who else?
The DeMarcus Robinson.
Damn.
Because
God damn. Shut this show, man. I'm leaving. Dang.
no, actually, I
I didn't even
think
get that.
honestly,
I
like
got sniped on my tape.
you should have just took it. See, you should have just took it. Don't let me in.
Okay, that's fine. That's cool.
No, yeah, DeMarcus Robinson, because we've seen what's been going on with Cooper Kupp the last few years, and watching how DeMarcus Robinson finished the year last year, and now another year in that offense. They paid him. I'll let you kind of go over the contract stuff, but like one, he's just gonna have productive weeks, even just as the number 3. We saw that last year. 2, if any of those guys go down, how many times? I mean, as a guy who had like a lot of puka, watching all these games, this man would just like fall down on the ground, like he was shot in the ribs, and you'd be like, damn, this dude out for the season, and then come back like 2 plays later, and then of course we knew, we're familiar with Kupp's injury, and then let's not forget, I know you like the tight end they brought in, but let's not forget that like Higbee is, had I want to say it was a late ACL injury, but he had a late injury or ACL, so I'm not expecting him back anytime soon. So DeMarcus Robinson at the worst, potentially the wide receiver 3 in that Rams passing offense, which I think has significant value on a random week-to-week basis. So perfect for best ball. But 2, like a guy that you can get that late that like I feel like, he's not going to get you 100% of what Kupp does, but like 60, 70, 85%, I mean, that could be love, especially later in the year.
Yeah.
So my best ball guys would be Khalif Raymond. I think he's kind of going undrafted. Bo Melton, he's definitely going undrafted. Greg Dortch, Kyler loves him. The Cardinals love him. Like, that's telling me something. And he's definitely going undrafted.
You think Dortch, though, like, I mean, with Marvin there,
you're talking about an undrafted guy, right? I don't think Zay. I haven't heard nothing about Zay.
Yeah.
Zay Jones. Yeah, exactly. I haven't heard.
Stop it.
And literally, we all saw the quote where Kyler was like, if Dortch was 6'2", he'd be like a top wide receiver in the league, or the best wide receiver, whatever he was saying.
Yeah.
And Dortch, he high young age breakout. Going back to dynasty talk, but coming out of college, he was like one of those highly touted like sleeper type receivers that everybody's high on with the Jets, and it just didn't work out. But I think he's getting his footing more so with the Cardinals, but he's still there. He knows the system and everything like that. And I think he's wide receiver 3. Like,
I got one more.
No, wait. Hell no. Let me say my guys, okay?
I know you're going to say this guy. Okay.
I might not, but yeah. So yeah. Who did I say just now?
Dortch.
Did I say Bo Melton?
I got to go.
Bo Melton, yeah.
Okay, I said receiver. I'm leaving receivers alone. If you got a receiver,
no, it's not a receiver.
So now the running backs. Definitely Trey Sermon for the Colts. I think he's a running back 2 there. I mean, everybody keeps telling us that, and I keep seeing him at the very bottom of ADP. So it's obviously not getting through. Eric Gray with the Giants. I still believe he's the running back.
Gray. Yeah.
I still think he's the running back 2 in the Giants, and he's still being super undrafted. You know what? That's kind of all I got.
Okay, I got 2
and
more.
And then, of course, no, you're not gonna say what you alluded to a second ago. Kobe Parkinson with the Rams. If you're looking for a late tight end, he's definitely going real low.
Lucas Kroll, I've been beating that drum for quite some time. But time's gonna tell, because like we're gonna know one way or the other, who the tight end is gonna be in that offense, and eventually they're gonna get drafted. So that information is gonna come out pretty quickly. So if he ends up being the guy, like, great for me, but he'll probably end up getting drafted. If not, then I just, potentially wasted shares. The last guy, be careful. The last guy, Sam Darnold. Okay? Sam Darnold.
That's only for like super flex, not in regular best ball.
This is underdog.
Hell no.
So the only reason I bring up Sam Darnold is because look at all the quarterbacks that came through Minnesota last year.
Nah.
And they had some Nick Mullins had some elite weeks.
Do that. If y'all hear my voice, don't do that. Man, Let me tell you why you don't want to do that.
All right.
Because again, we're talking about, drafters maybe, right? But even then, I don't think it's really worth it.
But let me finish with this. This is in the event because he is going to be extremely low on, because people are going to just assume that he's not going to be the quarterback to finish the year. If they're competitive and Sam Darnold
But let me ask you this. Yeah. What is the most likely scenario? The most likely scenario is he won't be the quarterback at the end of the year because they drafted a quarterback in the top 10.
I need an unlikely scenario.
If you're going to take Sam Darnold, you got to make sure you have drafted J.J. McCarthy early. Like you have to get both of them.
No, I wouldn't.
Because I think personally, and again, that's why I think he's an okay super flex option. I think he's going to start the season as a starter, and I think he might be the starter for like half the season. Yeah. But I do believe at some point, because I don't think the Vikings are going to be a playoff threat, right? And if they're not a playoff threat, I think by the end of the season, they're going to say, okay, let's see what we got from this. Literally, the 10 that we like so much, apparently. Let's see what we got with him, because obviously we're not going anywhere.
Oh, that's the most likely scenario. I 100% agree. But again, this best ball underdog, I'm fighting against like hundreds of thousands of people. Like, I need an unlikely scenario. So the unlikely scenario is I'm going to go ahead and, stack a JJ.
Yeah, I got you.
Addison.
That's a dart throw.
Maybe I get like a late round TJ Hawker when he comes back. And then Sam Darnold just like the last round, because nobody's. Because before I was doing, going Bo Nix, but now Bo Nix is a thing.
Bo Nix is a thing?
Bo Nix is a thing. Bo Nix is getting drafted. I got sniped on Bo Nix.
This how.
Oh, another one. And this guy's getting drafted though. Russell Wilson. Hard to project.
I don't have a problem with that one.
But like you look at it, like his schedule at the end of the year, it's pretty damn nice.
I don't have a problem with that one because I feel like
he's getting drafted right now.
I feel like Justin Fields is never going to take that job unless Wilson just bombs.
Yeah.
Like if Wilson's steady, I don't think he's gonna.
Yeah.
Just Fields gonna
Yeah.
take that job. Anyway, so those are our best ball. Anything else for best ball? Because I still gotta get my dynasty guys out because
Nah, that's it for
I'm
best ball
really
for me.
upset. Like I don't even remember all the guys I said last week. It was so many. But are we finished with best ball?
Yeah.
Okay, so my dynasty guy this week, and in no specific order, right? Malik Washington for the Dolphins. He's an option. We talked about Bo Melton. He's also a dynasty option. Talked about DeMarcus Robinson, who's also a dynasty option. We talked about Khalif Raymond, who's also a dynasty option. But also look at this receiver for the Falcons named Casey Washington.
Who?
He's like a
yeah.
fifth, sixth round pick, so late draft capital. But he's already getting first team reps, which is always nice. That wide receiver room for the Falcons is not settled at all. And I said it on the last week episode, and I mean, like I said, we said a lot in the last week episode. But people are always saying, "Who's the next such and such?" Right? Like, who's the next Puka in this instance? And I always be like, okay, if you're wondering who the next Puka is, who was the Puka before Puka was? Like, these are unicorns, right? There's not just a next, especially the next year.
Yeah.
You can't expect to just have these guys pop up. But with that being said, if somebody was to ask me who was the next Puka or who the Puka was for this year, I think he would be the type of player because he did produce quite a bit in college. And again, that receiver room is kind of up in the air, and you probably expect Cousins to throw a lot more than what the Falcons were throwing in the past. So he has an opportunity there. I mean, do y'all remember anybody else I spoke on last week? Because I don't know. Kobe Parkinson, again, I'm going to keep beating that drum, keep looking out for him. That's all I remember right now. If I remember next week, I'll try to write it down or something.
All right, guys, before we head out, I do want to talk about a concept, something that we've been thinking about. We are thinking about doing a listener league. If you guys want in a listener league, please hit us up on Twitter, add us, hit us up in the DMs if you follow us. If you don't follow us, then follow the First and 15 podcast, our Twitter account. Please hit us up. We are going to put together a listener league. It should be kind of fun. I'm going to live stream it if we get this thing done. But please like, rate, subscribe, and we're out.
Yeah, hopefully this one get listened to. It makes it to YouTube.
It makes it off the cutting room floor.